Welcome back to another episode of the Wausau PD podcast. I'm Todd Baton, the Deputy Chief at the Police Department, and today we want to talk about social media use in law enforcement agencies, specifically in our agency at the Police Department here, and just kind of topics associated with that. To that end, I'm joined by a couple of individuals here. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Luis Lopez-Sorrell.
And I'm Ethan Bars.
All right, so we got Luis, we got Ethan here. Very different roles. Luis is one of our patrol lieutenants, and you've been in law enforcement for, oh my word, quite a while
24
now.
years.
24 years, and you've been specifically with Wausau PD since 2015.
Yep.
And Ethan, your role is kind of unique and a little bit newer. It isn't 24 years old, but what maybe just briefly describe your role?
Yeah, I'm 24 years old. So. Definitely not, haven't been here that long.
Luis, you were
yeah, it's what you call experience and tenure. No, I'm the community communication specialist here at the police department. So it's a fancy way of saying videographer. And I've been here since 2022. And so almost 5 years now.
Yeah, and we're going to talk
2020.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of your role as well, and how that came about, and really assisted a lot of the things that Luis and I were trying to do, and that the department was really trying to do at that time to connect with a broader audience. So in that we want to talk about, again, social media use, like what we're doing with that, why we feel it's a useful tool for police to be using. And so I'm actually going to start with you, Luis, about kind of what your involvement, how that started with you really at a previous department, or because you were actively engaged in promoting law enforcement activities, information, helping your previous agency stay kind of in front of things to keep the public informed long before you came here, and you brought that knowledge and those skills here. So maybe you can just kind of touch on how that started for you.
Yeah, so prior to here, I served with Corona-Water PD, and during that time, I was, one of the younger guys in the department, and I was deemed our quote-unquote technology officer, so I kind of was always digging into some of the different technologies that we had to get involved with, and on a personal level, I started getting involved with social media and started seeing how, on the very forefront, companies were trying to use things like Facebook groups and then eventually pages to reach out to consumers and to people that follow them. And so I had a couple iterations for our police department of a group and then a page. I think at one point it was just kind of like a normal profile that we would try to get people to friend. But eventually we got to where things have been for quite a while, which is Facebook pages.
Sure.
And, started building experience and creating a fellowship there.
When would that have been, like when you started doing that, do you think, at Corona-Water?
It's hard to say. I would venture to guess probably around 2007, 2008,
okay.
Kind of in the early forefront of Facebook becoming more out for normal consumers.
Which really predates what Wausau was doing.
Yeah.
And we can get more into that, but that wasn't really until about 2013 is when we're like, hey, let's set up an active Facebook page for the department. So you brought a lot of experience.
Yeah, those first few years, we were the only agency in the county that was using Facebook and social media. And it was such a new thing that people weren't really sure how it was going to get used, especially for something like government or law enforcement. And then I remember somebody from your office reaching out at one point saying, hey, we're looking to start a page here in Wausau, and like, what are some of the challenges and good things and bad things? And so I know I was able to help out a little bit with that, and then I was able to jump into that role when I eventually transitioned here.
Yeah, I guess kind of considering that you've been fielding questions about this from law enforcement partners and colleagues for for quite a while. Mm-hmm. I guess I didn't even kind of connect the dots on that, how long that's been. Well, I'll lend just a little bit then of that historical piece, like from the Wausau side. It was around 2013, like I had said, when then Chief, he became Chief, Ben Bliven, said, hey, let's start this page. and that was an endeavor that was really used to serve some recruiting purpose. Was I think our initial thought on that. It was right around that same time we had developed a recruitment video that was probably our first sort of comprehensive foray into a recruitment style video, but we didn't really have a platform to put that on. And I think the Facebook page started to fit that bill, was an appropriate place to put that. So really for us, the motivation was, hey, let's get the word out there. Let's have a place to put some recruitment materials, educate the public maybe a little bit about what we're doing, communicate to the public, about different goings on through the police department. Is kind of how that had started. So then you came here in 2015, we joined forces, and I would say that is probably when our social media presence started to be, really build up a little bit more momentum. We started to have a little bit better understanding that in order to connect with a good-sized contingent of the population, this was going to need to be a part of that. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you start to make social media part of like the expectation and not just like this thing you do off to the side, but an expectation in the way that you communicate with your community, you really start challenging yourself on different ways you can use it, how it's best being utilized, the successes you have, the failures you have. And, we've tried some things that have done really well. We've tried some things that have not worked. And it's slowly been able to build up to where we are now, which is, one of the most followed police pages in the state of Wisconsin, which, for us, we don't make money off of this. It's not about the followers. It's about the connections we make with people in the community, which eventually helps us with solving crimes and getting out community messages, which are such important things. And we're only able to do that because we have those followers and viewers. Whereas if we never put the work into it, there wouldn't be those eyes there.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And while I think everybody at the department, so many people have contributed and do contribute to making our social media success, or a success rather, whether it's them participating in videos or offering their insights or ideas or suggestions, I would say none of this really happens without Luis, his involvement, and just his vision for moving this forward. When we talk about video, though, we can put up posts, we can put up photos, and we were doing that kind of stuff and offering information. Kind of around the same time we kicked off our Facebook page here back in, I would say, 2013, 2014. I grabbed a little point-and-shoot camera, jumped in with some officers, and just kind of rode around a little bit. Became familiar enough to be dangerous with some video editing software, not, expert by any stretch, but enough to put something together. And we threw that out to see if would anybody have an interest in seeing sort of an interview with an officer real time, as they're driving around, and what is it about them that made them want to be a police officer, and so on and so forth. So that was kind of how we dipped our toe into original video content, which then opens the door for Ethan. We started doing that for a little while, and realized, well, I did at least, I've reached very quickly the end of my, the limits of my video and editing skills, and we needed somebody that could bring a creative component and the technical ability, know-how with the cameras and with the editing software. So, Ethan, you started here as a very specific community service officer, a CSO with a very specific skill set and role, which was videography, and that was a part-time position. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that when you got into that role.
Yeah, so I grew up, I think it's a little helpful probably know a little backstory about how I got into videography. I don't really know where it started. I have a video of myself at 3 years old messing with the camera and recording myself. So maybe it started all the way back then. But as a teenager, 15 years old, I, for some reason, decided, hey, I want to start making some videos and doing stuff like that. And so I got a point and shoot camera or a camcorder and started recording some things. Eventually that kind of turned into wanting to make some YouTube videos. Just kind of, I was a vlogger. I'm not proud to say that, but that's kind of where I started. So started making some fun videos with my friends growing up. And then that kind of shifted into the cinematography. So around that time, people in the videography world remember Peter McKinnon. He was this guy that kind of started the cinematic movement, I almost feel like, in the YouTube world. And so I started doing that. I started like figuring out how can I take this camera and make these edits to music, add some slow-mo, and just explored with that. And I really enjoyed that. So the vlogs turned into these more cinematic type of storytelling. So then I graduated in 2019, and I was like, well, I really enjoy doing this, and I want to do it as a job. Unfortunately, around here in central Wisconsin, there's not, like, it's not Chicago, it's not LA. You don't have a lot of big production companies to be able to go an apprentice with, or just get hired by, or even shadow to learn what they do. So there's really not that. So I started doing wedding videos, kind of fell into that. I did one for fun to see what it was like, and then people ended up wanting me to do more. So that was nice because I made money from that and just bought more camera gear. And so I never really made money from the videos I did. I just put it back into camera gear. Did some commercial stuff, and so kind of started to dip my toes in the professional realm, if you will, doing it for a paid gig and telling stories that way. So I was doing that, and then around the same time, like I said, I wanted to do this for a full-time gig, but I wasn't really ready to do it completely full-time. I mean, I was like 18, 19 years old, and it's like, it's a big undertaking to start your own business and certainly provide for yourself full-time. So I don't even know how it came to be, but I was looking for jobs at the time, and the job popped up here for the community communication specialist part-time. And I was like, well, shoot, like, I can get paid to make videos. Like, I'm totally applying for that. And I had absolutely no idea, admittedly, what I was getting myself into. I had no idea that you guys had a YouTube channel. I didn't know that you guys had a Facebook page. I just saw videographer, you're going to get paid $12 an hour, I think was what it was at the time. And I applied and came and showed you some of my stuff.
And you had a lot of previous experience in the back of police cars from your prior arrests.
Yeah.
I'm just
no, you
didn't have a connection to law enforcement at all. Is that safe in saying that?
That is 100%. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of the things is when I came here, I didn't know anything about police. Like, absolutely nothing. My only interaction was an accident that I got into when I was 18 years old. And it was a fine interaction. I screwed up, and officer was super polite. But like, other than that, I didn't get into any mischief growing up in that way. So I didn't have any family in law enforcement. So there was no interaction with law enforcement. So I come here, and it's a completely new world. Like, I don't know how to, even talk to these people, I think is safe to say, because it's a little bit different, right? Yeah. So I come here, I get thrown into it. You guys start me off by making a few projects on, like, hey, let's tell the story of this officer. And at that point, you're doing the interviews, and I'm shooting the B-roll and the interviews. And I cut it up, and I guess from there, the rest is history. I continued to do more and more work, and it was super fun. I think what I enjoyed most about it, and what I still do enjoy the most about this job, is just the creative freedom that you have. Like, I really enjoyed making cinematic visuals to make, like, things look cool, right? Like, put the music to it, slow-mo, crazy effects, all these things. But the problem is growing up, like, I didn't really have any cool subject matter, not like a police car, there's all this subject matter with police and firefighters that you can film endlessly. So I would have to make my own fun. And so if you Google my name, you'll probably see I drilled some skis into the bottom of a couch and sent her down a hill in my hometown. So
we watched that video when we were doing our
I was wondering if that was going to come up.
Yeah. So every once in a while, I feel like an officer discovers that there's a whole YouTube channel out there with my old, not so great videos. But yeah, so that's the stuff that
just
I would
when we
film
thought
and
we
do.
knew you, there's this whole world,
right? So,
oh boy,
I'm surprised that didn't like scare you guys away. Like, well, he knows how to use a camera, but.
Well, we're going to circle back to then what happened after that, and how the the different shape that the videos started to take over time, and the position itself. But I want to ask you, Luis, like, now that we had somebody on board that could throw together these videos, we had quicker turnaround time. They looked great. You know, the quality was much better than anything that we on our own could do with a little point and shoot or with our iPhone. Like, what were we thinking? I mean, like, what was your thought at that time? Like, we could do this or we could do that, or that was a game changer, I think, getting that going.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. We started thinking of every way we could use video to communicate crime information, communicate what's happening with the department. You know, even going back to going through COVID and some of the things we were doing during that. And it's just all these things that have happened that you start thinking, well, what if we did that on video, or what if we talked about that on video? And you know, it's a little daunting at times, because just as much as Ethan's not a cop and he's trying to learn about us, we're not producers and directors, and that's outside of our realm, and we're trying to figure out the best way to give him feedback on things we're doing, but also not tell him like, hey, this is how to do your job, because we certainly don't know how to do that. So it's been a good mixture and a good, I guess, good growing pains of figuring out how best to use this position to the benefit for the community and help spread our message and just help people understand what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that has been, you know, one of the constants is like the why behind this still was, it is a great recruiting tool for us. We get candidates that come in, almost all of our candidates that come in for an open, like a police officer vacancy, like a sworn officer position, will say, oh, well, I was watching your videos online and I learned this, that, or the other thing about your agency, and that's why I applied. And so that is good validation, and that's good feedback for us to see, like, well, okay, the messaging in that lane at least is working. But then, like you had said, it's really about educating individuals about maybe why we do some of the things we do, or some of the constraints that we have to operate under, some of the, you know, the parameters that are in place, but also really to showcase the great work that our staff do. Ethan was able to and is able to put these videos together that are sort of this tangible thing, you know, kind of memorializing an officer's work here. So I imagine, you know, when my great grandkids are looking at these old videos, they can be like, oh, like that's my ancestor who used to do this or that. I don't know what format it'll be at that point, but maybe they won't even, maybe it'll be irrelevant. They won't be able to watch it. Yep. Yeah, right.
It is interesting. Kind of what I heard you say is like the trying to connect like what actually happens in the job, or communicate what happens in the job through video. Because it's, even for me, there was one moment where I remember doing a ride along, and it just proved to me that even what they see on the screen is really different than what's happening in real life, because there's still that disconnect. I mean, being able to show that on a screen, like through a camera to the community is huge, because it's a view in that they wouldn't normally be able to see. But there was one time I was riding with Officer Price, and there was a gentleman that stole a bicycle from a bike store. And so he's biking down the street, and Officer Price stops him, and it's happening right in front of me, that he's pulling this guy over and then arrests him for stealing the bicycle. And to me, it was just very interesting, because it's like I many times see through the back of the camera, but that day I didn't have a camera, I now remember, and I was seeing it with my own eyes. And to me, it was just very stark that there's still a disconnect. No matter what I do to show through a camera what's actually happening, there's still a disconnect there, because you're not actually there. So I don't know where I was going with that specifically, but it is interesting to me, where it is a challenge for me to try and translate what's happening, like what the officer's feeling, what's going through their head, what their job is, the considerations they're making, what's happening. Trying to communicate all that through a video is really, really difficult. But it's also been a great challenge, and something I've really enjoyed is like, how can I make this video better to better communicate what we're trying to get across and show who these people are?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it also brings up stuff that maybe we've talked on previous episodes about which is the limitations of some of this technology. Like you can throw together these great, fantastic videos, put some cool music to it. You can slow stuff down, and an individual looks like action heroes are walking through. Or there can be these really evocative moments where you come away with this feeling, but there's still limits to that. Not unlike an officer can be at a scene. We have a body camera. There's a camera in the squad car. It can capture, views of that incident, but that's what they are. They're just a view of that incident. It isn't the whole thing. There's limitations to what can be captured and documented through that. It's a piece of that documentation. It isn't the whole situation itself necessarily.
And jumping back to like recruitment, I remember, and this may be the same for you, like when you start applying for jobs, like you want to find out, is this going to be a place that I enjoy? And back when I started, my only option was, okay, I go on the website and I see what's on the website. And you'd go to some departments where their website was, here's our address and phone number, maybe the chief's name, and that's all you got. And it's like, okay, I know nothing about this agency. And then you find a website where it's like, oh, they've got a picture of their squad car, and you get to see some faces of the officers that work there, and like maybe an annual report where you can see some of the things that are going on, and that gives you a little better idea.
Right.
And then now you jump forward to where we're at, putting out these videos, specific recruitment videos, but even just these kind of ride along things, and you get to meet the officers and you get to see a little bit more about the culture of the department and what the community's like. All of these are things that candidates are looking for to figure out, like, is this a place that I'll like? And it's free. Like outside of the fact that we're, spending money producing these things, you put it out there and people find it free and organically, and you just can't get that type of feedback to the community any better way.
Yeah, I think that is, that's super relevant because, and maybe we've mentioned this before, but we get maybe a tenth of the applicants. I mean, if we're still sort of on this recruiting theme, we get maybe a tenth of the applicants that we used to get years ago. We'd get 300-400, years ago. Now we're happy if we can get 40 applicants for a process or something, but we're still finding really great people because I think they're applying much more intentionally. Mm-hmm. Back then, like you said, with the limitations on information that was available, we just you would just blanket the region or the state or wherever indiscriminately with applications because I just want to get in policing. I don't know anything about these agencies. I'm just going to apply everywhere. And like, that's okay. Like, you want to get into this field. It's an honorable profession. Love what I do. Love, working here with you guys. But then you get into an agency that maybe doesn't quite fit with who you are because let's face it, all these agencies are very different. We're all very different. We're trying to accomplish this, this goal of protecting our communities and individuals over whom we've been, these areas over which we have stewardship. But the culture is really different. The style of policing, is it rural? Is it in the city? Is it, whatever? And so now we can communicate that through these videos. And so people that are applying here, we find generally are applying specifically to Wausau because of the type of policing that we're able to show we do.
And we've hired people from Alaska to Arizona to Missouri to New Orleans, like all over the country because of the fact that, there may be local ties as well, but they've been able to see the videos and learn more about us without ever having to travel here and meet us in person.
Well, a good example of that is actually the fire department. So I work for the entire city, right?
Yeah.
The fire department had a candidate that came through and has no ties here, no ties to Wisconsin at all. It's from Colorado, and then his wife possibly, or he, California. So California and Colorado were his ties. And he's like, well, we want to move to the Midwest. We want to move to Wisconsin. And so he's looking for fire departments. Well, our fire department has a large YouTube catalog to be able to see, hey, what trainings are available? What do we do here? What kind of equipment do we have? What's the culture like, especially? I think he possibly only applied to Wausau Fire. That was his top choice because he was able to see exactly who we were. And he liked what he saw. And so he's like, I want to work there. And so he moved from Colorado to Wisconsin with zero ties here, all because of the social media, admittedly. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example. And I think the benefit of that, of this kind of practice is it helps the community. It brings in people that in many cases will have experience like this individual. And we've seen that too, people that lateral in. It benefits the department because those people are likely going to stay if they feel comfortable that this is an environment, a department that they're going to be happy at. Because we've seen people leave here that are really good officers, good individuals, but this might not have been the best fit for them. And I know that many of these individuals are working at other agencies and they're doing awesome and they do great work there. And to me, that just shows like, oh, that fit is really important. And so I don't want to feel like we're wasting anybody's time, and vice versa. Like, I don't want our time wasted. And so like, let's get the people on board right away, coming here, applying, starting here as new officers that have a much more clear understanding than what they could have had 20 years ago.
That's a good way of saying it.
Perhaps, I guess.
I like that.
Luis, you talked a little bit about this, like, hey, how does social media, or how has maybe social media changed how we communicate with the public? And I know you field a lot of questions through, like, we get direct messages from the public, although we put on there like, hey, this isn't live monitored, so if this is an emergency, please call 911 or dispatch or something like that. But we get a lot of questions through there, sometimes questions through comments as well. So, I mean, what do you think the benefit then, or what would be the detriment if we didn't maintain these pages?
Yeah, I think people are always looking for answers to questions about what are you doing about this? What's the reality of this? What's the law on this? And without having the ability to educate people through our social media presence and have that direct connection through messaging, we'd be fielding maybe more calls where people are calling and talking to our officers and trying to figure out things that way, or just I shouldn't say making up, but coming to their own conclusions about what our officers are doing. Yeah. And this allows us to more effectively share, this is actually what we're working on this project. So recently we've been talking a lot about homelessness in Wausau and some of the challenges and some of the solutions that have been come up with. And if we didn't have social media, it would be left up to the community to just be like, oh, well, I don't know what they're doing about it, whatever. But through our social media, we've been able to share posts about projects that we're working on, share videos talking to our various resources and partners and things specifically about that. And we've done that for a variety of topics over the years.
Yeah. I know with some of those questions too that have come up where we're like, oh, we've seen that before. And then we can go to Ethan and be like, hey, let's get you teamed up with somebody. We'll identify an officer, a lieutenant, an individual here, and craft some type of, public service announcement style or a brief communication on this topic that might answer some of those questions that it seems several people have. And so we do try to do some of that way, and partnering with the community as well to know, like, well, what is it that you would like to know, or finding the resources, because we don't know everything, and so we'll have to reach out, and it's good for us as well to learn through that process along with everybody.
That was one of the things I was going to. Well, there's two things. Without the social media, and this is kind of a given, but for us specifically, I mean, there's our mission. Striving with the community to, partnering with the community to enhance quality of life. Like, you can't really partner with the community.
You got to memorize that, by the way. You have to.
Yeah. Well, so specifically for us, we can't achieve our mission without social media, I believe. I don't know how we would do it in today's day and age, or it would be much more difficult to partner with the community if we're not able to communicate with them through social media, through these videos. And one of the ways, so the second thing I was going to bring up is we have a really good, case study in a way with the train PSA that we made. So I don't know, maybe you want to kick that off, because you were the one fielding a lot of complaints about trains and their horns being blown in the city. Yeah, there was some noise complaints.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, we had a transition in different railroad operators here in the city, and the new railroad operates a little differently than the old one. Yeah. And so that was generating a lot of questions from the community about following our train horn ordinance, and some of the changes in patterns and the way they were moving through the city. And I was tasked with the challenge of being the train liaison, which was very new to me. But I was able to build relationships with the railroad and then with the city, talking about what our ordinances and laws are. And, we felt, hey, let's put out a video to help the community understand, because I can certainly field every phone call and say, hey, this is what the rules are. But if we're able to put out a kind of a broad communication like, hey, be aware of these things, it's much more helpful. And, I think that certainly did help. That helped feed some information to the local media to put out there, to help educate the public on what was going on. And it ended up being a very successful. I mean, it was a very, I wouldn't say it was the most exciting video, but it became a very successful.
You won an award, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say it was very
award-winning video.
To me, the biggest reward was I got to ride on a train.
Yeah,
that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
But it's, I mean, by the video, it's just like, we're talking about train laws and stuff but it was helpful, and it was a way.
Well, it's a bite-sized video that people can get all the information they need. It was like less than 5 minutes. I think it was maybe even hopefully shorter than that, because we really try to make those PSA videos like shorter, like probably 2 to 3 minutes to keep them very short and concise. But there's a visual component, so we're literally showing people, hey, when the the blinky lights on the railroad crossings are doing this, and there's the arm that goes down, so we showed some of that of what you can do, what you can't do, when the train's going away, but there's still the lights, you're welcome to pass through. So the visual component, I think, is helpful too, because it helps people physically see, the different types of railroad crossings, things of that nature. So, it was super successful, because I think you told me that pretty much after that video was released, you didn't get any more calls.
They tremendously dropped off, because people in generally had an idea. And if I even look at our snowball video years ago, national media outlet had put out this basically false information about what the reality. It was a hit piece against the city about our snowball ordinance, and it made it seem like, hey, our officers are patrolling around and looking for kids throwing snowballs at people and writing them citations. And so, we did this small PSA about the realities of our actual snowball ordinance, which involved officers throwing snowballs at each other in the background, and the mayor getting hit with a few. And
the mayor may not have got pasted in the back of the head by the then deputy chief.
But the whole point, the video itself was kind of cheeky and funny, but the whole point was to help the public understand the realities of our rules. So this news story that was out there isn't the reality of the situation, and it is probably still one of our most popular videos because of the way it was shared. So it just shows how you can take what most people would say is a pretty silly topic, an ordinance violation, and kind of just help people understand it better.
I mean, in the production bar on that one was actually very low. That was actually me grabbing the camera on a monopod, trying to hold it still, and it was all just one take, and then editing
while
it
you're
together afterward. While we're it was that was interesting. What I've learned though from one of the things I've learned from Ethan and really your generation, although it's definitely kind of carried over into many other generations, is this is how many people are consuming their information nowadays in short form video format, this bite-sized information, because they got a lot of things they want to do. I don't want to sit and watch an hour-long podcast, which we're doing. But so that's why a lot of it is just kind of rapid fire. Here's a thing we'd like to say. We've said it. Now it's over. There's some engaging, imagery and music to it. And then let's move on to the next thing. And so that's been really successful, I think, for us. And I've learned that, okay, in order to get that message out there. Like there's this sweet spot of, okay, where's everybody dropping off as we look at the analytics on how a video is doing? Like, okay, well, we didn't even get into the meat and potatoes of the issue, and everybody stopped watching after, X amount of seconds. And so kind of tailoring those messages after a while, but also recognizing, like you had said before, Luis, like we'll try whatever. Some things are a home run and some things are like, that didn't work. We'll try something different. In that vein, what do you guys think has worked for us? Like maybe what were some of our successful endeavors, maybe more like video type of stuff, like where have we done okay, and where do we think we made an impact in connecting with the community and meeting our goals?
I definitely think our videos that have followed an officer during a shift and seen some of the calls that officers have gone to, our behind the call videos are some of them are more popular, and then our videos where officers have, the behind the calls where they talk to an officer about a specific incident
really
or
difficult
whatever.
case,
and that's been some of our more followed videos, just because I think people have been really intrigued to hear, the human side of being a police officer and what it's like to roll up on a scene where this is happening and how the officer dealt with that in the moment and afterward. And
because you don't hear that side of it, right?
It's just something you don't experience.
Yeah, and if viewers or listeners aren't familiar with that, it was a series of videos that we did, a short series of videos where we had actually sworn staff that work here at the police department that were vulnerable and brave enough to sit down in front of a camera with Ethan there and talk about probably one of the most difficult calls that they had handled during their career, the aftermath of that call, how it impacted them, and what they did to move past that and heal and carry on with this work. And we sat and talked about, do we want to do this and what would really be our goal to do this? And part of it was, I think sometimes we send out a message that policing is just, it's super fun all the time and we're all high-fiving and the rainbows and the sun is shining every day, and every call we go to, people are like, thank you, officer, and this was the best. And we had to kind of dispel that myth a little bit, that it can be really, really taxing emotionally, mentally on an individual to do this job. And so here we have an officer, in a couple cases, it was maybe two officers together talking about a difficult call. One of those has been viewed, I think, on Facebook like 1.3 million times. And we've had people reach out to us from chaplain groups, nursing organizations, mental health professionals that are doing conferences and so on and so forth, saying, hey, can we show these videos? Like, we have found value in this. And like, that's great. If that helps people understand, like, yes, policing, public safety is still a very noble, honorable profession, and it's worth it to help others. But don't kid yourself, there's going to be some very difficult days. Just know that going into it. And I think that maybe has been helpful.
Yeah, I think of all the videos I've made here, there are plenty of videos that, rise to the top, but I think that series is probably the most memorable and important to me because, and frankly, I take no credit for it. I pressed record and I cut it together, but the officer was, I'm very honored that officer felt comfortable enough to sit in front of that camera and trust me essentially with that story, right? To cut it up and to share that with the world. But it's just so special because I think certainly as a whole, the law enforcement profession has come around to the idea of like mental wellness, mental health. And I think that's great. But still, it's those stories, we talk about it, we pay it lip service, but like a lot of people don't actually, at least citizens, don't actually understand the things that officers are dealing with. So being able to share that with citizens to show this is what, after the fact, what this officer may be dealing with, struggling with inside and the difficult things that they saw. But then I think the comments that we saw on those videos, there's tens of thousands of comments, and hearing from other people, hey, I'm an EMT in a totally different state, and like I very much relate to this. Thank you for sharing this, because I feel the same way. And you know, it's been incredible to see the far-reaching impact of that, that other people from other professions can relate with this, and you know, maybe feel like they're not alone when they're struggling with some of these difficult things, because again, it's not something normally talked about.
When I think inherent in the message is the fact that what we have to say and what we have to show people is really for everybody. We want people to know and be proud of not just the Wausau Police Department, like people here locally, sure, we want to have their confidence and their trust, but wherever you live, to have respect for and confidence in the first responders working in your area and the work that they do. So, yeah, I mean, on the surface, it might be like, okay, why is the police department worrying about social media? In fact, why are they even doing a whole podcast talking about social media? And like, stay in your lane, like do police work. And like, that's a fair question, sort of. But I also think it's part of the fabric of our life now. That's how so many people communicate. So it just makes sense that we would try to connect as well with people. I think by ignoring that, I think you even put it this way once, would be akin to us not patrolling an entire segment of our city, because just so many people prefer that style and type of communication, and look for those updates on, hey, what's going on? There's a road closure, or there's a special event, or why was there a heavy police presence over here? And so we try to put some of that stuff out there.
You could even, I mean, that's probably like the number one thing that we hear out there as far as a negative thing. Like, why are you wasting my tax dollars working on social media? And, you know, we go out in the community all the time and go to events where we read books to kids, and we're working at a festival and just walking around and saying hi to people and stuff. And people could say, what point is it to the police department to read a book to kids or to say hi to people at a festival? Like, you're not policing.
Yeah,
and
just do your job.
Yeah, just do your job. But the whole point is building those connections with people, getting the community to know who you are, getting the community to respect and trust you, so that when we need your help, you're willing to help us and trust us. And I mean, we've seen, because we have such a great followership on our social media platforms, we've put crimes on our Facebook page, and before I have time to close the page, I'm getting messages solving it. Like, we've put blurry videos and pictures of people. It's like, hey, could you help us identify this person? And within minutes, we have the case solved. And it's all because of our community being willing to follow along. And if we didn't do all that work and, you know, occasionally post something that's a little silly that gets viewership or whatever, we wouldn't have that followership at all. If we could certainly just post news releases and the most basic things, certainly, but we certainly wouldn't have the followership that we have.
No, I agree. Yeah, like it could be like the who's who of, you know, like people with warrants or who we're looking for or whatever. But the fact that it becomes that force multiplier, like you just described, it is really why we do a lot of what we do. Because then when there is a situation that's dire and we really need, you know, 68,000 sets of eyes, you know, to be looking around for a vehicle, a person, like whatever, they're there. And so, yeah, that's been extremely helpful for us.
So I have an interesting thought, and maybe to hear your guys' perspective on this, but it's almost like social media and this way of connecting with the community is almost like the new way of walking the beat, because you used to walk the beat and you know, walk down the streets and you know the neighbors, and you'd be able to, you know, connect with the community in the same way that kind of like reading a book to a kid. But that doesn't exist anymore. You know, we have squad cars and they're driving around, and there's a little bit of that interaction, but this social media is a way to connect in the same way that you'd have a conversation with somebody on the street when you're walking the beat. So that just occurred to me right now that maybe this is like the next era, or is kind of an evolution of that, since it's not existent as much
I
anymore.
think it makes us more accessible for sure, which I think is probably a good lead-in into something that I know you guys have been asked about from other agencies, other municipalities, individuals. about, well, how do we get involved in a, social media campaign or setting that up, but how can we up our game, I guess, as it were, in videography and doing those things. Like, for example, if I'm, working for a very small municipal police department in a much less populated area, and maybe my funds are pretty limited, or I work for a very large urban, metropolis style policing agency, and I have a whole unit, a media team. Like, what are the differences, and how can we both be effective, and other agencies within in that spectrum as well. And I think we've learned a little bit of that kind of trial and error, and maybe we can talk about that. Like, what might be, like, for us, there was an evolution of that. We started really with nothing. We were able to get somebody who joined us who had some years of experience already, exploring that and learning. And then we, grabbed a little camera and started doing this, that, and the other thing, until eventually we have somebody who knows what they're doing with the camera equipment and video editing. And so it was this different take. But I'd be curious to know, if I have no involvement at all, like, and I just want to kind of break into law enforcement, social media / videography stuff, creating original content. Like, what do I do? What's the best way for me to do that? Because maybe some of those people are watching.
Well, I think I'll kick it to you first, but what I would start the conversation by saying is it has to be an evolution. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's something you can just chuck money at and it'll solve all your problems. Yeah. Like, you need someone that understands it. Yeah. You two, like, I will say my position wouldn't be as successful as I think it has been if I didn't have you two. If I didn't have people that understood social media, understood what we're kind of trying to go for, that's done it themselves, like you started making the videos. So I think it has to be an evolution. I don't think it's something you can just hire a videographer and say, hey, do what Wausau PD is doing. Sure. It's got to be something that's kind of grassroots within the department. So I'll kick it off to you because I think you have a good idea of.
I think the big thing is, start with a platform that you want to work on, and, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. But, I'd say start on Facebook. There's a lot of people on Facebook that you can start to build an audience with. Yeah. And you can put a lot of varieties of things on there, from text to pictures to videos. And you can post very simple photos of things happening at your department, things happening in your community, and get those messages out and start to interact with businesses in your community and stuff who have their own viewership, to help them, tag you and get you connected. I went to a training last year where a department talked about, like, they had a very popular YouTuber in their community. And so they're like, hey, do you want to make a video with us? And they said, yeah. And they connected, and that brought a huge audience to their page. So do you have talent that exists in your community, whether it's an influencer of some sort or just a business with a good following that you can make a connection with to help grow that audience? But yeah, just be organic with it. Find things that you can take pictures of, videos of. I mean, you could be standing on the side of the road. We had a series of crashes earlier this winter on the freeway, and I'm sitting in a squad car with nothing better to do than to block the road. It's like, oh, I'll take a picture of the crash, the pile up or whatever, and post on Facebook, like, hey, let's avoid this area. It's a very simple thing, but getting that picture out there gets people to be like, oh, I should keep track of this or whatever. And that's going to help you, like, start and learn what works for your agency and what doesn't. And then you can kind of expand from there to Instagram or other things. And then, all of us, well, most of us carry smartphones that have very high quality video cameras on them. I know, like, my smartphone can shoot 4K, and you can make, a video standing there filming yourself just talking about something happening in your community, which I've done. And yeah, I mean,
some critical acclaim. It's been awesome. Yeah. We got great feedback.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, you can be at a community event and say, hey, we're down here patrolling the area. Stop by and say hi. It's a very simple video. It doesn't require you to sit there and do any editing of any form, and just put it out there, and you'll see what works. And like I said before, we've done some things that have not worked. Yeah. We've done some things that have done very well. So
yeah. So start simple.
Yeah, and then you can evolve into where you can find talent that can do more things with what you already have built.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I would
like
say especially one of the things I always tell people is because I went and talked at the Wisconsin, I think it was the Wisconsin Chiefs Conference, and told them kind of what we were doing. I went with our fire chief and explained what we were building there. And, I had chiefs come up and say, hey, we want to do this. How do we do it? And the first thing I said, so if you're a command staff and, maybe you don't have the time to be someone that's kind of the one building from the ground up, is there's got to be someone in your department that likes taking videos, taking pictures. They're probably already taking pictures of their squad car in, their free time around town or whatever. Find that person and lean into that person and their curiosity to learn this. There's people that have a desire to do this kind of thing or have an interest in that hobby. So use them, ask them to try and take some pictures while they're on shift, make a cool video or something like that. But you can do a lot of these things, kind of to your point, is for free. It doesn't cost any money. It's actually hard for me. I certainly can give people advice on what gear to buy. I mean, there's tons of it. You can never have enough, right? But it's hard nowadays because it's like iPhones are so good that if you just get a wireless mic for your phone, it's like, boom, your phone's already $1,000. So it's essentially $1,000 camera. So I always tell people to start with that. And I don't remember where I heard it. I think it was a marketing conference I went to one time, and they said, you got to do some R&D, rip off and deploy. So find what other people are doing, what works for them. Obviously, be careful not to ruffle any feathers and copy what they're doing. But see what they're doing that's going well and try and implement it in your department.
As we're talking about how an agency could get involved or maybe expand their involvement with videography to showcase their agency and communicate with the public and or use more social media, leverage social media to make an impact in their community. Not everybody can have an Ethan. Not everybody has the funding, the ability to do that. So we talked a little bit about, everybody has a camera with them generally on their phone. What might be, and that's good, but what could be maybe even what's the next step after that? Maybe I've kind of reached the limits of my ability. And we've talked about this before. Like maybe there's a technical college or even high school program, in videography or some kind of multimedia, something where capstone projects need to be done. I don't know how feasible you guys would maybe see that being, depending on where an individual lives or an agency is located.
My understanding, at least around here, is there's plenty of AV clubs or tech colleges with those programs, and they're always looking for projects. And I mean, to be honest, being able to say I worked with the Wausau Police Department or a local police department is a cool thing to be able to put on your resume for those kids. So certainly that's an option. And I guess it really depends on what you want, but a tech college will probably be able to give you something more like a recruitment video possibly for a capstone project.
Oh, sure.
And high school AV club might be able to do more of an interview or kind of like a TV style show where maybe your chief goes on there and tells them about, hey, this is what's going on at the police department today. So, or this year. So I think those are great options and definitely feasible, and it's free. You can just reach out and say, hey, would you guys be interested in doing this? And we'll kind of let you in behind the scenes a little bit. So
yeah, I like that because for day-to-day stuff, like what you're describing, kind of what we were talking about is you find an officer that has an aptitude for that or just simply likes doing that. Can get a lot of content for you, take a lot of photos, create some engagement. But for maybe a larger project, hey, we want to do a new recruitment video or whatever. Yeah, check your community, check with the high schools and these clubs and technical colleges and see if there's a way to make a connection there and highlight some local talent and partner with local educational organizations.
Yeah, or I mean even talk around the department, see if anybody knows of a young creator, like someone that was in my shoes many years ago. They has an aptitude to want to do this, but just needs an outlet. So see if there's somebody in your local area that is fancy with a camera and would be interested in making a video or two to kind of test their skills and abilities. So that's also probably a good option.
From an equipment standpoint, I mean, if one were to be in this room right now, kind of looking around, there's cameras all over, there's lighting equipment, there's microphones. But you don't have to have all of that to get started in doing this.
Nope.
Like to your point, like just kind of starting simple and doing this thing. You had mentioned get a wireless lav mic or something like that. Like these
That'd be
things,
big.
a price point's pretty low on a
Mhm.
lot of these things. You can start pretty easily, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And I think even if your department might not have the resources, maybe your community as a whole does. And that's part of, what expanded Ethan's position is the fact that, he became a general city employee who was available to all city departments. So he's been able to put out videos for, the city talking about the redevelopment downtown, and DPW talking about street projects and the water plant and the fire department,
and
inspection,
garbage cans.
I mean, all
Plowing
of the
operations.
plowing.
and-
I mean,
yes.
all of these things
Done a lot of stuff, yeah.
that are good for the city, not only to help educate the community on what the city's doing, but also to help with marketing the city for businesses and people to live here. So, like you said, maybe it's your department isn't capable of taking this on, but maybe your city is,
Yeah.
maybe
Right.
your village
That's
is.
a great point.
And you can work with them to say, hey, let's bring somebody on who can do this for our entire community.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that actually is, I think, an important thing for people to know is like a lot of the projects overlap. So we use a lot of the archival footage. So a perfect example in my mind is we have a bike park, a downhill bike park for in the city limits. And so we made a video. We partnered with the local bike club to make a video on that showing, we got some pretty good riders that could hit all the jumps and get some air and stuff. So we made that video showcasing what we have in the city. So as for the city, it showcases the amenities that we have. But then in our recruitment video for the police department, and I use them in many other places as well, I use that biking footage to show, hey, we have mountain biking. And then you can just imagine we do the same thing with our drone videos, with kayaking, fishing, being downtown life. So all these different videos then kind of creates this catalog that we can then use to market, like you said, the entire city, other departments, doing recruitment videos for them. So it's just been great, because now I actually export a lot of those clips for you two to use. And so now you guys have this vast catalog to be able to edit your own videos if you have hankering to make a little promotional clip here or there.
Yeah, because sometimes you're not always available, right? Because you're
Right.
working on projects for
It's a
others.
force
and so,
multiplier,
so, Luis and I are able to use either free or much lower cost software options, whether it's, some online stuff like DaVinci or a subscription to Canva that we have where we can, or even just using the video editing software on my iPhone to use some of that footage, those clips, that catalog of clips to put stuff together. That's been super helpful. And I think sometimes there might be a tendency to think, maybe from an agency, that they don't have the time to do this. Like like not only does that cost money, but like I don't have time to do that. I got a lot of things to do, which is very true. And maybe several years ago, I would have been more like, I got you. This isn't for everybody. But I just think those days are kind of gone. Like if we're thinking, I don't have time to do that, boy, you got to carve out some time. I didn't think that would be something that would occupy a chunk of my time in the various roles that I've had here. Luis, your role is as a patrol lieutenant. You supervise patrol officers out in the field. You're responding to calls often. You have many administrative tasks that require your attention, not the least of which being a resource for an entire shift of officers and answering the phone all the time as a day shift lieutenant at that. The phone rings all the time. But you have to find time where you recognized and have made that a priority, I would say, to look at those questions coming in on Facebook, in our through Messenger, responding out. You might have to research something too and get back to somebody, or working with Ethan, sitting down right now to do this because there's value in that communication and in doing that. So it has kind of caused us to rethink or reinvent to a certain degree some of our responsibilities, not the roles totally, but like we've had to be like, I might have to reprioritize this from where it was a few years ago. It's kind of bumped up a couple rungs on that priority ladder, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, Ethan does a really good job of making the videos and that content, but he doesn't touch our social media. Like, that's up to us to post things, and that's not our full-time job. Like, our full-time jobs are very different than that. You're busy being deputy chief. I'm busy as a lieutenant working with my officers and dealing with the day-to-day things. And our work in social media is very much just finding time to do little things that take, like, for us to do something quick on Canva and post out a message or whatever, it takes minutes at times to post something that could be very important. And sometimes we put a little bit more effort into it, but social media is an important tool, but it's something that we do on the side of our primary job and responsibility. So you don't need to sit there and monitor your messages and get back to people right away. We do that when we have time to do it. We have a disclaimer on there to let people know it might be a little bit. But otherwise, it's an important thing that people need to adopt, and you can squeeze it into your day.
Yeah.
I think departments just need to accept that it's necessary in today's day and age. I think if you're not on the train already, you got to get on.
Yeah.
There's probably a time where, I know there was a time where police officers didn't have email. Like, if you wanted to contact an officer, you either had to call them or mail them. And then at some point people were like, well, I guess we should give people email addresses, and it made it easier for people to reach out. And now we have social media, and it's even easier for people to reach out. So, like, with every invention, you need to find out, like, how can that make our job more effective and make our ability to communicate and work with the community easier.
Yeah, the communication landscape definitely has changed, and will likely continue to change as time goes by, for sure. There'll be some new iteration of, like, how people are getting information and communicating. I know one concern that we've heard, and you and I were just talking about it a little bit ago, from individuals that are maybe have a little bit of apprehension about getting into social media from their law enforcement agency, is dealing with, like, oh, what about negative comments that are coming in on posts, or like, I don't want to have to worry about that, and people are going to say these things. And, like, we went through that. I mean, I think we thought about that too, and that was in the forefront of our mind. But the reality is people can say what they're going to say. I mean, we have the city social media policy is linked onto the onto all of our social media platforms. We have certain filters are in place, mainly to prevent some of these scam emails or comments and stuff from being posted up there. But we just found, by ignoring a lot of that stuff, people are going to say what they're going to say, and I maybe used to lose a little bit of sleep over it, and now I'm just like, whatever. Like, I think yesterday some of us were able to attend the graduation from Recruit Academy of one of our new officers, and really proud of her efforts, did a great job there, and another one the day before from a different academy. So these were things that we celebrate and that are good things. And I know I put up a brief post yesterday about the one graduation that I went to last night. And we had really great comments on there, a lot of positive feedback, people wishing that individual well, a young person who's excited starting their career. And then there's a negative comment on there kind of thrown in the mix, like, why are we celebrating this? Like, big deal. Like, we're celebrating somebody doing a requirement for their job.
Yeah.
Like, the gut reaction is like, oh, I would have things to say about that, or in response.
I wanted to respond like, do you need a hug?
Yeah, like, I mean, it was so odd to me.
To be fair, you do sometimes give those types of responses back to people.
But you have to realize,
right?
like, it's part of the gig. I mean, we walk down the street and not everybody's like, hi, it's great to see you. Like, there are people like that just don't like us, or that people have nothing better to do than to look out for things on social media to be negative about, but you just brush it off. And like, to be clear, like, we take negative feedback. There's things where we post and we're like, okay, like, I get that, I understand that, but we don't ignore it, we don't block it, we just leave it there, and it lies, and it is what it is. It's a necessary, I shouldn't say it's necessary, but it's just part of doing social media. And the more popular the posts that we put out there, the more of those that we see, because
That's
people
for sure.
find
I mean,
it.
that's a better way to put it. It's like at some point you just have to make your peace with that and be like, hey, not everybody is excited to see us at their door or at their the side of their car, on the road. And some of those people also are on social media and can comment things. Yeah, why don't we get into the real meat and potatoes of what this conversation is about, which is some people may have seen this already, but active today, I think it was posted this morning or late last night, is a job opportunity with the city of Wausau for community communication specialist.
We've been meaning to talk to you about
which is currently Ethan is leaving us. So I don't think this was common knowledge outside of these walls yet. Well, now it will be. Ethan's work in videography, specifically on our recruitment videos, has been so effective that he has now been hired as an officer.
He recruited himself.
So our videographer, who came here with no connection to law enforcement a handful of years back and was immersed in this world, got to know our officers, built relationships here, told our stories for years, now had the opportunity came up, and he's jumped at it to join the sworn ranks as a sworn officer. So that is leaving a vacancy within your role, and we're going to have to now identify a new videographer to step up and be that next person who's going to be able to kind of pick up where you left off and say like, oh, and here's my vision now, and I see what's been done so far, and to kind of move from there. So two things I would say, super excited. Why the change, and like for that next person, where do you see this kind of going? And I would ask you the same thing. Social media videography, like where do you see it going over the next 5 to 10 years? So yeah, why the change, videographer to law enforcement, and what challenges for the next person?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So, I mean, sometimes it's hard to put into words because it's like I've been here for 5 years. So it's like, when was that moment? I think there was a couple catalysts. One of them was my wife decided to also make a career change. And so she decided to make a career change to public service. And that kind of made me realize like she was very well established in her job and had a good career. But she's like, well, I want to serve in a different way. So she was in the healthcare field, and now she's moved into emergency medicine. And that was, to me, I was like, well, if she can do that, I can do that. I can make a career change, even though it doesn't really feel like much of a career change because I'm only 24. I've only been doing this 5 years. So
it'll be a change for you.
Oh yeah, it will definitely be a change. But some of these people come in with 20 years of experience in a totally different field and then jump over. So I feel like it's kind of stolen valor to say it's a career change. But so there's that. That made me realize like, yeah, I can do something else. And I think it's totally accurate to say that I kind of self-recruited because, I mean, in a lot of ways, when I'm making the videos, as a storyteller, you're trying to figure out what their story is so that you can effectively communicate it. So in that, I had to ask a lot of questions. And to the officer that I'm interviewing, it might be like, oh, he's asking questions to figure out like how to communicate this well over video. And that's true, but a large part of it was I was asking questions that I wanted to know the answer to. Yeah. I was like, I don't know much about this. Tell me about this. So I've done a lot of ride-alongs. I like to brag, probably more than your average civilian or of civilians that do ride-alongs. I'm probably up there on the list of
for
people
sure
that have done it. So I do a lot of ride-alongs, and I ask a lot of questions, and I came to learn a lot more about it. And there was kind of a moment where I was like, so I guess I started to take a lot more interest in what you guys do on a daily basis. And there's kind of a moment where I was like filming a training, and I was like, I would much rather be participating in this training rather than filming it. And that combined with kind of the impetus to make a career change, those were kind of some big things. And then thirdly, like I said, it's kind of hard to put it into words or kind of pinpoint it down, but what I think really won me over was working for this department and being a part of what we have here. But the officers, everybody here is so professional and people of such high character that's what won me over. It's like I think some people, like, you could almost say were born to be a cop. Like, that's what they wanted to do ever since they were little. That wasn't me. I was kind of won over and inspired, I think is the best word to describe it. I was inspired by the people here, and I wanted to be one of them. I wanted to serve in the same way that they serve, because to me, it's not about, you know, I'm going to catch bad guys. It's I'm going to make a difference in the community. I want to get to know people in the community. I want to serve in the best way that I can. And I was inspired by our department and our police officers. And to be fair, many people outside of this department, because I've met a lot of officers outside of this department, but working intimately with these people here really, I guess inspired me to want to do that. So that was the why behind it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the awesome twist in this is that the next person will likely be making a video riding along with Officer Ethan.
That'll be weird.
And getting your story. So we'll probably hear that again somewhere down the road in a different
You'll be like,
form.
you're not framing that right. Can you get this?
That will also be difficult for you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting being on the other side of the camera.
But I think what I think is also important that I would want everybody to know is you had everybody rooting for you also. Like, everyone was in your corner when you were in this process, because you did build those relationships. Took the time to do that during those ride-alongs. You kind of hinted at the beginning of our conversation today is, like, we're a little bit of a closed group, or can be. It can be sort of hard to kind of break in a little bit, and there might be somewhat of a wall there at times to, start that conversation with a police officer. We're a little wary occasionally. So I think the next, you just rolled with it. Like, you were able to come in, build conversations. You're a very genuine person. So I'd say the next, this is sort of the teaser if anybody's like looking to apply for your soon to be vacated position, is you're going to whoever that is going to have to be able to build those relationships and be a really good communicator. It's one thing to know how to press record on the camera and all the settings and know the ins and outs of the editing software, but can you communicate with somebody? Can you build a relationship, sitting in a car next to a stranger until they're not a stranger anymore, until you have a really good rapport with them and a good relationship. And I think that skill, what you were doing in this role right now and communicating with people and talking and making people feel at ease and explaining things to them, that's what police officers do. Like, we communicate with people, we're answering questions,
that was one of the things I was like, I love meeting new people. I love getting to interact with them. I love getting to learn their story. So it's like, it's obviously a big change, very different job description and what you do, but kind of the core of the job of getting to know people and their stories is exactly the same thing you do in policing. You're learning this victim story, what's going on today, learning who they are as a person. And so that's one of the things that was pretty easy for me was a very easy light bulb in my head. Is like, well, I'm just going to do that, but get to do it even more and more frequently. And I think it'll be more fun too, because you don't have to edit it later. Well, I got to write reports, but
that's a form of editing.
Yeah,
you got to document it.
It's going to be exactly.
You got to document it. Well, I think what we'll do is we'll probably put the link down below.
Yeah.
In the description for this video, if we can, if this one gets edited and out soon enough, the process will still be open. We'll put the link down below, so people that might be interested, or if you know somebody interested, then they can, check out this podcast, and follow the link to the application.
Yeah, let me take a moment to just sell this position, because it's been so fun to be a part of this department, to work here, to be able to do this job. It's kind of it's very difficult to put into words. The people that I've gotten to meet here, the friends I've been able to make, all across the city. I know everybody here at the police department. I've had to get to know everyone here to tell their story. The fire department, I know pretty much the entire fire department. You get to know the mayor, all these different departments, and it's really enjoyable to be able to help fulfill their needs of, they need to hire people. They have information they need to get across. So being able to help people throughout the entire city, you're helping the citizens, but you're helping these departments to be able to help the citizens has been great. But from a videography standpoint, this job is so much fun, because pretty much you have a lot of creative freedom. Certainly we need this video made, we need that video made, but you have the freedom to kind of make it what you want. And I think that's super, super great. Kind of what I was alluding to before was the subject matter. The subject matter is awesome. I mean, you can go any which direction you want with the edit and you can make it your own. So if you're somebody that wants to challenge themselves creatively, this is a great place to do it. You got police and firefighters. What more could you want? And they do super duper cool stuff. So it's been really enjoyable for me to, I guess, also see the evolution of my own creative skill of like what we started with as videos and what we've turned them into. And a lot of the video ideas or a lot of our series that we have, a lot of them came from conversation with you guys, but some of them were also me just saying, hey, I think that this would be kind of cool. Can I try making a video like this? And you guys are like, yeah, go ahead. And now it's a staple in our catalog of videos, on the beats, things of that nature. So that's why I would say to someone is if you're interested in this position is that from a videography standpoint, from a quality of life or quality of the job standpoint is like, this is a super fun job because you're not working for a corporation that's having you make training videos, stale, boring, dry content every day. Like it's just like policing in the sense that every day is different. You're always working on something different. Meet new people, and you have a lot of creative freedom. So like that's what I would really sell to someone is you should apply for those reasons and do this job for that.
And maybe
awesome.
You'll get to ride a train. Or
that
a
is
plane.
true. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you
get around a train. I went up in an airplane. I didn't.
You been on the hoverboat, the airboat rather?
Airboat with the fire department.
You get to use a drone. So
yeah, get it. Yeah, you can be on the drone team and
a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff.
Well, I think that's a great like we'll make a short of this section, and that will be the recruitment video for the community communications position.
Yeah,
right there. Like you just threw it all together.
Yeah.
No, that's really good stuff. I appreciate those observations, and you do and have done a fantastic job. For our agency specifically, but really citywide. There's been great ideas, and we hear great feedback from others all the time about the work that you do. So, kind of wrapping things up, I guess I would say for both of you, and maybe we'll give Ethan a little bit of a break. We'll start with Luis. One of two things, or both if you like. Where do you see this type of thing, meaning social media and videography and law enforcement, going over the next years, handful of years? And or what final advice might you have for an agency looking to, again, kind of up their game or get more involved with this?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a department who isn't using social media at all, or looking to expand on that, I would say just start messing around with it. But certainly feel free to reach out to us and we'll try to give you some advice along the way. And there's trainings that you can take through CivMIC and other organizations to learn more about how to use social media in policing. But I mean, I think just video in general is continuing to change. We've seen just in entertainment industry how YouTube has really taken over the market in providing content to people for free. And traditional, TV shows and stuff are struggling a lot more. And it's because people have more control and can make what they want and put it out there relatively easy. So I think if you have the skill, get working on it right away. If you don't have the skill, find the people in your community or department that have it, because I guarantee most departments have young people who, most departments have seen a big changeover in their staffing and have very young officers. You're going to have people who are talented or maybe willing to take things on and learn about it. So I just think it's time to adapt to the way communication is being put out in the 21st century and use it to your benefit as an agency.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think those are really important insights and super helpful. Ethan, any final things?
I would just say that you have everything to gain and nothing to lose. I think that we've just seen tremendous benefit from the recruitment that we have here and the quality of people that we have applying. to the following we have now to be able to solve crimes and connect with the community. I think it's just, I'm obviously very biased because this is what I've been doing for the last 5 years, but from my perspective, living in this world, and then also, being a student of this, and I watch a lot of other departments, social medias and stuff to see what they're doing. I think it's just something that you got to get on board with and have fun with. Just it's a new frontier, and so there's really no right or wrong answer. Just anything is better than nothing. So start with taking some pictures, sharing your story. I think that's probably what I would say as a overall is share your story. Don't be afraid to share your story, because your department has a story, your officers have stories, and people frankly deserve to know those stories, and it's only going to help you.
Great place to end. I think you're absolutely right. All of our agencies have very compelling stories. There's amazing work that goes on here through the Wausau Police Department every day across the city. We would need 10 videographers to tell all those tales every single day, and we can only tell a fraction of them, but really grateful we're able to do that. I am very thankful for each of you and what you bring to our ability to connect with the community, because that really is what it is about. And it helps us meet that mission that's up on the wall there, and partnering with our community to enhance the quality of life. And I think this is just one of the latest ways and effective ways in order for us to make those connections. So appreciate you guys being here today and sitting down to talk about this. And thanks for watching and listening, and we hope that you found this information helpful. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes of the Wausau PD podcast.